Thanks everybody for tuning in, whether you're in the AM or the PM. Optum is, as a lot of you viewers have known, we've been hosting this podcast called Semi Related. Again, the play on words there. So try to make it a little bit about work, a little bit about fun, and hopefully everybody walks away with a little more understanding and education around the topics that we're talking about. Today's a really unique episode because we haven't had too many panels. And as Jacob said, we're kind of, this topic around shared assets, shared trailers, the trailer pools. A lot of names have been thrown out there, but it's a topic that I've been passionate about and very interested in for many years now, and have often looked at the future of the industry and how this concept could execute at scale and just the benefits from that. So again, on today's show, we've got 3 really cool guests that are going to offer their own unique perspective around this topic. And without further ado, let me introduce. We got, and I'll just go around my screen. We got Corey O'Brien at Wabash. We got Spencer Ware over at Repowr, and the one and only Don Everhart over at FreightVana. So, I think maybe for starters, guys, I'll start with Corey. Maybe a quick intro on yourself and your role, and then we'll get into some questions and go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Appreciate you having me on today. I am the Vice President of Operations in the Wabash Marketplace team. This is a new team Wabash has formed lately. I'm sure you know about Wabash. So 40-year-old company, industry leader in first to final mile equipment solutions. We consider ourselves kind of right in the epicenter, in the middle, really, of a complex ecosystem of partnerships in transportation, logistics, and distribution. The marketplace team we created is really what we see as our opportunity to kind of connect this diverse stakeholder group, some of which you brought together here today, to really look at industry challenges. And so we're trying to create this new platform. Trailers as a Service is our kind of shared trailer service that really helps our customers with access to capacity nationwide through a subscription model, which are fully maintained assets supplied through us, where we guarantee the uptime and performance of those assets. So thanks again for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Corey. Appreciate it. Okay, Spencer, Mike is yours.
Appreciate you having me, Chris. Glad to be here. And so I'm Spencer Ware, co-founder, CEO at Repowr. And Repowr's role in the industry is very simple. We built a platform that connects carriers, brokers, shippers to a collaborative network of on-demand trailer capacity. And so our universal trailer network democratizes trailer capacity, brings visibility to underutilized trailers, connects those trailers with carriers, brokers, shippers in need. And it provides that ultimate flexibility that logistics companies need. And, from our perspective, we're an agnostic, newer entrant in the space that, we have a unique perspective of being able to partner and work alongside anybody really in the industry with no conflicts of interest. And, shared trailers is our core focus, and it's what we live and breathe. So I'm excited to be here and excited for the conversation.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Spencer. And Don, I'll let you give your own plug, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks for waking up early, by the way, out in Arizona. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you said AM and PM, some AMs are earlier than others, but I think this is the earliest people have probably seen me in the office. I probably got confused this morning. So Don Everhart, Chief Technology Officer here at FreightVana and founding team member. We started FreightVana 3 years ago. We're a tech-enabled transportation company built on a foundation of transparency and trust, right? That's the tagline, right? We are, when you really think about us, you should think about us as a pure play broker that really supports power only, and we brought a lot of assets to play in that. This is kind of a unique call because we are actually partners with Wabash, one of the people on here, and we actually had a call last night. We agreed to not beat Spencer up just because we've got a relationship. So we're like, hey, we're gonna steer clear of that, right? Know Spencer well, connected with these guys in the industry. So our primary value prop is that, we bring trailers to bear for our customer base to drive efficiencies, while giving access to the long tail of capacity, right? That's really the move. And while others have been in the power only space, and there are many other entrants that are coming, it's our core. It's where we sit in the space and how we show up. So really appreciate you putting this together today. I think looking at the kind of list of questions, we have some fun topics to talk about. So always fun to chat with friends and inform people a little bit more about what we're doing in the market.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Don. And again, all you guys appreciate those intros. And if you don't know our guests, I'm sure at the end of the session today, I'll give them an opportunity to kind of give their contact info. But definitely all thought leaders in this particular topic and industry veterans alike. So again, thank you guys for joining today. So when I think about trailer pools, guys, and shared assets, this whole concept, back 20 years ago, I think this is not a new concept per se, but it's something that we can all agree that is there's benefits, but it's also very challenging to get it up and running and executing at scale, right? I think that's a no-brainer. But I think half the battle is being able to kind of evangelize and educate audiences on the upside of this shared asset mentality. And we know there's a tremendous amount of capex to run your own assets, the upkeep, the maintenance, the driver components. There's a lot. And I think depending on market fluctuations and conditions, right? This idea of, is it better to hold all these trailers on our books? Is it better to shed assets when the market seemed favorable to do so? Lease trailers. Wabash could probably go into some of from the manufacturing and leasing side of it. And then we have, okay, that's great. How do we coordinate and orchestrate all this to happen, behind the scenes? And I think that's where the FreightVanas and the Repowrs of the world are helping. So kind of to each of you, and I can get no particular order here. How have you guys seen this concept evolve over from maybe your early years in the industry to where it is now? I'll just to kind of establish a little bit of context from where we were years ago and how this concept has evolved to current state and current day right now. So maybe I'll go back to the front of the line here with I don't know. I'll start with Spencer, man. I'll give you the first run at this time.
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody in the industry is very familiar with universal trailer pools. Large majority of our customers on the supply side of our marketplace, the large mega enterprise fleets, set up trailer pools with their customers. And at the time, universal trailer pools were a new innovative way to gain efficiency and cost benefits associated with them. And in today's world, technology's evolved. Power only is on the rise. The industry has changed a little bit, and we're seeing trailer pools, contributing to a lot of idle, underutilized trailers sitting around all over the country. And there's becoming a better way to do things, and connecting that idle or glut of capacity that exists within trailer pools throughout the country to owner operators, brokers, other carriers. And really, when it comes to trailer utilization, it's something that every fleet in the industry struggles with. I mean, in large teams of 20, 30 people sometimes are managing trailer pools throughout the country, back and forth emails all day, every day. And, at Repowr, we're attacking that problem. We're getting trailers back on the road, moving, connecting them with carriers that can use that capacity, and creating really a mutual benefit for the trailer owner and those carriers or brokers in need. So.
Awesome. Well, great to see Repowr kind of hitting the scene. Spencer, I think you nailed it, man. The opportunity is massive. So, Corey, I know you mentioned, and people see Wabash and say, well, we know Wabash. We, going down the road, it's not uncommon to see Wabash logo on these trailers and assets. You mentioned the marketplace earlier. It's kind of a newer initiative there at Wabash. I'd love to kind of hear more again, Corey, how you've, in your many years at Wabash, have seen kind of the traditional view kind of morph into more of the technological and the marketplace stance. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that regard.
Yeah, for sure. That's a lot of what we're working on, is transforming not only, our own company, but how can we also impact just like you guys said, the fastest growing category of power only. So how can we and where do we play? So really looking at our current customer base, and really focused on trying to help solve problems that they see. You can't build a business on something that's not really actually creating value for your customer. We need to get closer to the problems of our customers and our customer's customer. And so that's really what put us in the position of really starting to build technology, but on customer-centric solutions. We think as an OEM, we have an interesting position where we have this closed loop process with our engineering team who designed and built the trailer. So then as we now run our own fleet, which we really haven't ever done before, we find out and get really close to the problems really fast. So we can get those problems, get that back to our engineering team to re-engineer the trailer, continue to make it better so that we can continue to deliver the lowest cost of ownership trailer in the industry. And this new trailers as a service opportunity has really created that method for us to get trailers out in these pools with a lot of new customers to us, the Dons of the world. That's a new customer profile for Wabash that we didn't used to have. And so it really taught us more about the industry, more about his problems and our customers' problems, which really then allow us to help build some technology to help solve it. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Don, I know you're going to have a unique perspective as a
Yeah.
CTO, right? So the technology, no stranger to you. I know you also have a background prior to FreightVana at one of the largest mega fleets in the nation. So you're probably, I'm sure during those years, and as we've had in prior discussions, right, the opportunity's always been there. And now you, Shannon, the team have kind of decided to take the plunge and really make this become the focus of your business. So yeah, give us some more perspective from the FreightVana side, your side.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing, Chris, because when we look back, you're right. Drop trailer's been around for a long time. It's primarily been asset players that are playing in that space, and we do come from a mega carrier. A lot of us have that background there. I think this is my 24th year in industry. Spent 15 years at that location specifically, but I think that's even where we saw a lot of the inefficiencies and opportunity. Not saying that they're inefficient, just in how asset players approach this, because you're right, people carry this stuff on their books. It's high capex. And going back to your prior point, you said, hey, carrying on your books versus short term versus midterm, like I think it's an and for all of those. It is probably the right thing. It's when you're working on fleets, you don't high watermark the fleet because now you're very inefficient. You don't low watermark the fleet because then you can't cover the capacity. So I think we've evolved, and having stood up a power only product within those walls, that we see an opportunity to, as you're building business, as that book is growing, deploying assets, some of which are owned, some of which are operating in a task model. Like I said, we are partners with Wabash. That's how our trailers come to bear. It allows us to have a more stable operating pattern, but then allows us to also unlock that fast need for capacity. I think the other interesting part is the inefficiencies in the smaller carrier, right? They can't access certain freight without drop trailers, right? And some of these guys might be running a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1 ratio, whereas we can facilitate that and then really not even like leave them in a spot where it's like, okay, hey, you go to this location and now, hey, you have to go right back. Having that flexibility to enable that carrier to fill their own network and then get the trailer back to us, which is what we're all trying to facilitate, drives efficiency for the end customer in this case, which is the carrier. So we're seeing that efficiency play out. There's still a lot of work to do, right? Even with our asset management background and as hard as we've run in that space, there's still a lot of work to be done. And I think us and the others in industry, as well as those around this table and on this panel, that's where we're focused, is what do we have to do to unlock, drive down the deadhead in our networks, and truly drive operational efficiency for ourselves, our shippers, and our carriers.
Yeah, well said. And I like how you, again, the coolest part about this panel to me is Don and Spencer probably have somewhat similar perspectives, but I know with Corey, right, it's going to be a little bit there. It's an ecosystem of sorts, and I think you guys all fit in and complement each other very well. So that's super cool. When you think about Don, and you kind of alluded to it, it's not we haven't cracked the code yet, right? It's not a new concept. I would ask both of all of you really, and again, in no particular order here. What should companies that are thinking about going in this direction? And we talked about all the reasons they should, the efficiency gains, and we talked about just the sheer cost of having assets that we all know quantifiably are underutilized a good chunk of the time. So again, maybe I'll turn this one over to Corey first from the, maybe it's the marketplace, maybe it's a different answer you want to give, but what should companies, and they may have to come to you, Corey, if that's, how do they take this from a conceptual idea? And Don kind of mentioned, hey, it could be a massive mega fleet. It could be maybe more of that long tail, the smaller mom and pop fleets. But how would they even get, how do they even get to the point where they're saying, hey, okay, we don't really, how would we follow through with, taking this initiative to the next step? So Corey, any advice to offer people that are considering this relative to the traditional way they run their networks?
Sure. I like what Don said at the beginning of his comment about capacity. So we think about it in layers. Like we obviously aren't gonna change the complete capacity profile. They're gonna own some assets, then they want this flexible layer, and I think that's where these pools can offer this flexible layer of access to capacity. Maybe it's to just organically grow their business. Maybe it's to opportunistically see growth areas. Maybe in a down market, they want to bid on things with more confidence, knowing that they could get the trailers that maybe they feel they couldn't bid on otherwise. So in terms of how do you even start getting into this if you haven't really done it, you definitely got to consider what the operational components are of monitoring and maintaining a trailer pool, right? I mean, obviously you got to design the network right, make sure you got freight on both ends, which Don also kind of mentioned. Think about what matters for your power only carriers, obviously the rate, the lane direction, those kinds of things. But from our perspective, we try to help be the trailer guys in that conversation. So we focus on the trailer health, making sure that trailer is always available for use so that you can focus on the freight and the network design, especially if drop's kind of new. We make sure that the trailer is always available. It's performing to your needs, because ultimately you have to break this stigma with the shipper that says that can an asset-light person perform on cost capacity consistently throughout the cycle in all aspects. If the carrier is going to start running the spot market and rejecting loads, are you going to be able to convince the shipper to do this? We can help underwrite that capacity for you so that they're confident that it's going to be there, but also we can help ensure that it's going to stay on the road. It's high performing. You can actually then really know the revenue all the way down by trailer. So you have to be able to know it that tightly. So you really need a good trailer management application integrated into your TMS or within your TMS, and you got to really set it up to know how to run that to be capital efficient, right?
Well said. Well said. Spencer, I would love to hear how Repowr is thinking about that similar, the question I just posed to Corey.
Yeah, I think that, there's really not a one size fits all approach, that, a blanket statement or operational strategy that applies for carriers in the industry, companies in the industry. I mean, when you think about what all goes into trailer management, a lot of third-party carriers are hauling trailers that do not belong to them, and so there's the system that Repowr has built is able to keep up with chain of custody management, third-party trailer interchanges with insurance wrapped around each interchange. And so those are some things that if you're thinking about getting in the space that we see are very important, that come up time and time again, that a lot of times, people are laser focused on how many trailers do I need or how many can I give, without thinking about some of the operational kind of tactical things behind the scenes. Another one is maintenance, that I think can eat into margins if we're not careful. And over committing to trailers, getting antsy and having an opportunity, over committing to trailers, flexibility is a humongous value add that I think I would encourage anybody thinking and getting into the space. Make sure you partner with a flexible provider, and you're thinking through interchanges, chain of custody, insurance, and your margins.
Yeah, well said. I like the flex capacity. I think that's a term I keep hearing more and more. Again, highly predicated on market fluctuation. So, Don, I'm sure you got something sweet to add.
You see me twitching over here. So I think we're in a unique spot because FreightVana is not just facilitating trailers, right? We're unlocking freight for carriers, right? That they wouldn't otherwise be able to get into bids. And so there's a lot of opportunity for that in our space. I think what's important for those that are listening and those that are interested in the space is they may look at this webinar and go, this is weird. These guys are all kind of like competitors and they're but we're actually not. And I'm going to say that with a caveat. We may do very similar things, right? Like I have a method of having trailers, redeploying trailers, that type of stuff. Corey and Spencer have technical marketplace. I guess technically you could call me a marketplace too in some regard, but it's a little bit more tactical, right? We are in a large space here, right? Of the 800 billion that is transportation, 400 of that is drop trailer. Now, the interesting thing is of that, 5 billion is executed by brokerage today.
Yeah.
5 of 200. If we look at the live side, there's different proportions. It's closer to 50-50, right? It's, I think, 95, 115, something like that. So I don't know that any of us, I think I would love it for all of us if this were true, but no one on this call, we're not going to be a $100 billion company. Do we have opportunity for multi-B? Yes. Is there an opportunity for us to all work together in some way? I also believe that to be true. Because just like I'm unlocking capacity and I have stuff in my network, I'm utilizing Corey. That carrier that I deployed on the power only, guess what? He's got trailers. He's not hauling that trailer when he's on my power only. He's going to use Spencer to go then put money on that trailer. So there's an opportunity in this space where there's more room for co-opetition than competition. And I just don't think we've kind of figured it out or navigated yet. And I say that as someone that has had deep conversations with Spencer. Corey and I talk too much, right? Like, no offense, Corey. I'm kidding. No, Corey and I talk pretty regularly because, like I said, we're a partner. So, like I said, even last night he called me and we were kind of talking through some things. Like, there's room here and there's going to be more players. I think what's going to be interesting is how those people come to bear. You could come in as a broker, as a pure play, power only, like we are, and invest heavily in a bunch of trailers. Or you can come in and do some trailers. That's the layering that Corey was talking about and that Spencer's touching on. Like, there's plenty of room here. And then I think for Optum, which you haven't mentioned Optum in this, right?
This is not a commercial, Don.
It's not a commercial. But like, what's the optimization, right?
Yeah.
Between us as a group and those that are coming into the space. Like, what is the optimal solution? We don't know today because we're still solving our optimization problems.
Right.
We're not solving the broader industry yet. But I think as we evolve in this space and in the shared pool and the gray pool space, we'll see us move in that area through consolidation and working together and that type of stuff. So I think there's just a ton of opportunity to figure this thing out in the grander scheme, because right now we're all solving a micro in the macro.
Don, I like how you mentioned the mentality of a rising tide lifts all boats, right? And I think when you're on a newer concept, and again, I use newer. Newer. But I think only, and this kind of segues into the next part of this, you mentioned Optum, and I appreciate the plug. We'll just talk about technology in general, because to orchestrate this, There is a level, we can call it optimization, trailer management, the drop and hook networks. There's a lot that goes into it. So, Corey, I'll go to you right now. When you guys think about technology, especially as this marketplace starts to evolve, what types of technology is feasible, and what maybe you're using some today, maybe it still hasn't, the code hasn't been cracked yet, but what types of technology are you thinking about when it comes to, really executing these types of networks?
I assume I'm supposed to say AI somewhere here, like.
That was rule number one.
Yeah.
No AI, no.
Yeah, no. Yeah, we built this digital platform that makes capacity available nationwide. So we have this dealer network where we can position this capacity. So first you got to kind of visualize it, but behind the scenes on that, you actually do need to use machine learning to look at market inputs, analytics that come from the freight, space and data. So we ingest that and we look at where we should position capacity in a dynamic way. So the ops side of the business has to actually really get that capacity where it's needed most. Definitely all of our trailers are smart trailers, and that doesn't just obviously mean track and trace. We definitely know when doors are opened. You can know the loading state of the trailer. Of course, you got to know tire pressure and the health of that system, because tires are a major part of the operational expense, obviously, of the fleet. So, we really focus a lot on the analytics that come off the trailer itself, but every single one in our program has to be a connected smart trailer. Then, of course, you can get to the asset cargo chain of custody, the digital vehicle inspection report. I think we really need to get to a point where we're enforcing that more. A lot of challenges, obviously, around adoption of the inspection apps and things like that, but we just have to get there. It provides, again, that visibility into the asset health, the damage situation that's occurred maybe on those trailers. We know they get beat up pretty good. So definitely a lot of different areas where we're focusing on, technology, ultimately, again, focused on the customer problem that we're trying to solve.
Yeah, well said. Spencer, I know you guys are obviously having a technology investment to make this come to fruition. So any other thoughts to add on that topic?
Yeah, I wanted to point out Don's previous point as well. I think it's an awesome call out as far as, we're not competitors necessarily in this space. And I think ultimately trailer sharing will be as successful as our ability to work together, collaborate. I think there's a lot of success stories that we can learn from in terms of collaboration and partnerships within the industry and API integrations. I think that is a big focus for us. API integrations with existing platforms out there that have been around for decades. Trailer telematics, as Corey mentioned, is a big one for us. And really, when a trailer exchanges hands multiple times throughout a period of a week or a month, that visibility of the trailer is super important. So that's where the trailer telematics integrations come in big with us. Another one in terms of trailer sharing is that carrier visible identity. We just completed an integration with Highway just to give that trust and transparency of this carrier or this broker or this company has your trailer, and here's their authority history and things like that. That all is a big piece to making trailer sharing work effectively. And then we built really focused a lot on a streamlined checkout process with insurance available at checkout, where we offer insurance for a trailer interchange. And so those are just some of the things that we've tackled up front and believe to be key drivers to shared trailers working in the industry.
Yeah, no, one of my prior companies, we tried to execute I think we called it power loop or something along those lines. So similar concept. One of the things we noticed back in those days was that, we went after the shippers, right? And said, hey, maybe they could kind of took an approach of we could get some enterprise shippers that kind of were all on board. maybe again, going back to the general theme here is that everybody can win, right?
Mhm.
The problem we had was everyone was on board, and then it came down to like service level agreements. And we had some customers that had multi-stop and said, I'm in, I'll share my assets if you share yours. But hey, just so we're clear, I want my product coming off the trailer first. And that
Mhm.
just creates a little bit of friction in those conversations. So is that, and that was just years ago, but are you guys still, and maybe I'll turn this back over to Corey from your perspective first. What's kind of feedback are you getting from folks that are like, they're ready to go on board, but there's a little hesitation there because of things like the service level agreements come into play, and that hasn't really been hammered out enough to where everybody has that level of confidence to be like, hey, okay, I'm all in, right? So, Corey, any thoughts to share? Have you experienced similar situations?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the underlying point that Don and maybe Spencer mentioned at the beginning of we're not there yet, because
Yeah.
yeah, still is that full buy-in and co-opetition and stuff that has to occur to get everybody there. I mean, there's a ton of friction in the space, right? I mean, there
Yeah.
always has been. There's also a ton of technology in the space that, you know, we don't get credit for maybe having so you know, everybody thinks we're so behind and stuff, but there's a ton of great tech in this space actually. So I just think, you know, that, you know, somebody definitely said it earlier. I mean, this integration first mindset
Mhm.
is going to be important. You got to have, you know, the data and more importantly, probably the insights available to the TMS that they live in to actually manage the freight. You got to have it available in the WMS, or you know, you got to be able to digitally red tag a unit and everybody see that that's happened, so that you can still orchestrate maybe more efficiently that whole process. And yeah, I don't think we are there yet. There's consortiums that want to try and help. Those are one way to do it for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, a bunch of different methods I think being tried, but absolutely these conditions still exist where we're not there yet.
Spencer, are you seeing the same thing on your end? Just maybe the appetite is there, but just that, again, it's one thing to say we're interested, it's another to take that plunge. And again, I just mentioned some of my own experiences with the challenges. What is that resonating with you and some of the conversations you have with your customer base?
Yeah, I think that it definitely resonates. I mean, it's as an industry, there's a few players in the industry that are, open API first. But as an industry, I feel like we're still a little bit behind on that front. So that makes it challenging to share data real time with one
Yeah.
another, and also requires a lot of like sweat equity up front, just to get an integration done or a partnership done. So that's something that we see a lot. Yeah.
Don, I'm sure are you itching over
Yeah.
there again to chime in?
Yeah. So I've kind of lived this life. That's the problem, right? So was at a company that had many tens of thousands of trailers, half dozen or so telematics providers. And I've gone through the pain of living in a world where we had to derive our own standard from doing those partners and integrations, or partnerships and integrations. So as we went on this journey, so it's interesting when you're an asset player, you don't really have to have that great of telematics because you've got the driver, you have the cab, like you have other things that you can fall back on. Whereas in the brokerage space, where you're really getting into that, the rest of the capacity, you have to rely on trailer, which means you have to have great uptime, and you have to have good partners on that integration path. Like everybody, I mean, these guys just hit on it, but we don't have a standard for what a track point looks like coming from a telematics provider. It's all different, which
Right.
means that we have to take a path of, Corey said integration first, but I think of it more as like an integration layer, just in general, where we can react to whatever comes into the market and drive standards internally, because the marketplace isn't there yet on that. And I don't know how we're going to get, I mean, how many between ELDs, trailer tracking, like we're in the hundreds of providers that we're going to ask to really come together. Like, can we do that with a consortium of some sort? Sure. But We also know from the past how long that type of thing takes to drive standards, and standards often get, kind of massaged, right? Like EDI is a standard. When's the last time that you
In air
actually
quotes,
truly
yeah.
saw a standard EDI transaction? So I think we're going to have to take a lot of the work into our own hands until either a aggregator in the space comes in and says, we will be perfect at integrations, we'll integrate with everyone and give you a single point of connection, or we end up doing the work and sharing that with industry. So that's kind of where we sit on that. And then, like, just from a general visibility perspective, visibility is of the highest concern for us. Security is of the highest concern for us. That's where shared trailer pools are fighting fraud, right? Like that's not to say that these trailers don't specifically get targeted for fraud, because they do. We see that with some active frauds that are in the marketplace with a company that I won't name right now because they're very large, but everyone's kind of having problems with that. But having that visibility and knowing when something gets tampered with, knowing when a door swings, having cameras in trailers aids in that, and customers love that. So if we can make the customer, the shipper in this case, very happy, we in turn can make a carrier very happy, because that's, again, freight that they're not able to get to, that we're unlocking through the deployment of technology.
Well said. We know market, guys, the fluctuation is obviously, it's just the reality, the cycles of the market we play in. We know that we've had periods, again, the COVID era, right? We saw the frenzy. I think there's no secret there. And of course, we've been living through the recovery and hangover period for the last, going into 2 years or so, with no, other than pundits and predictors out there with crystal balls say they can, that they're anticipating an uptick. We all hope they're correct, but it's a matter of when, right? So how do you guys, when you're talking about the value props, how do you kind of tackle the notion of the market conditions? So again, what's the value prop when a market is extremely tight? When people are like, why would I want to use a shared trailer? I'm moving left and right. And then when the market, again, is in a soft deflationary period, does that impact the level of interest in those conversations that you're having? I'd love just to hear a little more. So Corey, what are you seeing? I mean, again, no secret of what the market looks like right now, but how does Wabash go about really maybe capitalizing on a soft market to really reemphasize the upside of trailer pool networks?
Yeah, a couple thoughts, I guess. There's bigger macro trends that maybe could impact us, like look at emissions regulations or something. Could drive, because a lot of the carriers, most of them have to deal with both the truck side and the trailer side of their capital budget. So if you've got something that may be coming on the regulation side of the truck, you're going to have to then pre-buy, which we've seen multiple times throughout the last couple decades. So if you're doing pre-buys on trucks, then obviously that impacts what your capital is available for the trailer side, right? So maybe 25 is going to be a high spend on trucks. Then how do we address that on the trailer side? Our approach is obviously having a capital light way to access trailers. And so, trailers as a service can come in and give you access to capacity where you don't have to spend the same amount of capital. So that's one way that we, I guess, are thinking about the market cycle.
Corey, I want to kind of real quick before I switch gears, do you have any metrics for us on just the overall what a current cost is? And I think there are a lot of companies, you make a good point. It's like, it's not like the trailers are only CapEx category, right? We've got the power units, we've got the drivers, the maintenance departments. Just for an audience, and maybe I'll open up to all you guys, is there any kind of staggering statistics around what that cost looks like, and then some of the work you guys are doing on how you've reduced some of that CapEx?
I think what I'll go after is this operating expense side, especially the maintenance of the asset. So when times get tight, what do you want to do is not maintain your equipment. Your parts and services spend is going up while you pushed your CapEx budget down. Obviously that, we all have seen that again multiple times over the decades, and then what's going to happen to your equipment performance. So you got to have the long view on that. So that's why we offer at least this fully maintained asset where, we actually have penalties if you don't do your PMs and stuff, because you just got to make sure you see it to have a safe trailer on the road, but really to have uptime. Like, do you know the cost of downtime in your business? You got to be able to offset the downtime with your maintenance spend. And if you don't really know that P&L in detail, then you think it's just beneficial to stop maintaining assets, or maybe try to extend the life of the asset. You usually turn them in at 7 years. Now you're trying to go to 8, 9 years.
Yeah.
But those assets are getting really expensive in those out years if they're not well maintained, right? So you got to balance, obviously, the OpEx side on the maintenance. And, if you really consistently spend on the preventative maintenance and keep the trailers in good working order, it obviously helps you.
You bet. You bet. I like how you delineate, Corey, and I'm going to turn to Spencer, like the delineation between OpEx and CapEx, right? I think often too, there's some intertangling there that goes on, and I don't think that people always really categorize that properly. So Spencer, with the Repowr, when you're kind of conveying your messaging of the upside here, how do you kind of approach that topic of, there's upside for the CapEx and the OpEx, or maybe you kind of lean towards one or the other? How do you go about kind of, again, to the earlier question, there's got to be some kind of monetary incentive to go this route. How do you kind of articulate that to your folks?
Yeah. So, I mean, you just think about a single trailer, $45,000, $50,000 new. And then there's maintenance costs, there's insurance that goes into that. And, a trailer, every day that it's not, the wheels aren't turning, then it's lost opportunity and it's money down the drain effectively. And so, we see a lot of our supply side customers, the large enterprise fleets, they're very diligent about keeping trailers moving, keeping them on the road, reducing idle time. And so, that's a significant advantage that we can partner alongside these large enterprise fleets. It's very expensive to move trailers around from point A to point B. If you have a glut of capacity and specific market in the country that has dropped off recently, then you need to reposition or reallocate, rebalance your pool to another area of the country. And so that's a way that we've been able to partner with some fleets and really help them offset a lot of their costs in a significant way, and basically turning their trailer management team into a revenue generating team. So that's been a huge win that a lot of our customers find a lot of value in.
I like how you kind of flip the script there of looking at it as just a cost center and an asset to buy and maintain versus the other side is it could, look at the revenue opportunity to generate more by utilizing more effectively, right? So Don, I'm sure you've got
I'll go back to
fire away, my man.
I'll go back to the cost side for sure. 1,000 trailers, right? 8,000 tires.
Yeah.
That's a consumable, right? Like I want to be clear, tires will need replacing. So yeah, just carrying from like an overall expense perspective. That's where these platforms really win in a lot of cases, and specifically some of the stuff with TAS, with the Wabash marketplace. And again, I'm not advertising for that. I'm sharing an experience. It is that all-inclusive maintenance. It is that carrying because, like I said, we own some of our assets too. We're out running those. I have very real expenses against those, right? And trailers are all fun when they're like nice and brand new. You start putting a couple of years and some miles on them and getting on that tire replacement cycle and some of the damage cycle, it gets interesting real fast. So, but again, that's where we're able to tap into our prior experience. So that wasn't an unknown to us. I think for anyone listening to this, not cautioning, I encourage, like get engaged, but do be aware that when you own an asset, there are some pretty significant costs associated with that at the same time.
I love one of the points you brought up about damage, like how, what I tell Don a lot and other broker customers that we work with is you're actually a broker. You're not operating the trailer. So how are you incurring damage expense? That's our mindset in our partnerships with our broker. type customers is you don't operate the fleet. So how do we do better, hopefully leveraging some technology that's really applicable? We're using some InsurTech technology from my past to really apply it and attribute the damage to the place where the damage was done, or to whoever damaged it, and then work with them in a partnership mindset again as to why are you damaging the equipment? Like,
Right.
not good for anybody. So, work with them to figure out how they can manage the yard better, how they can train, somebody to get trailers out that are parked, 6 inches next to each other without scraping the corner and damaging the unit. So damage attribution, I think, is another big area of a hidden cost that when you say, what's the cost of a trailer, you think of a per month rate. Do you really know across your business and all the different divisions, the marketing team pays for this part of the expense and the OpEx team and, damage all that's over here. Do you know the all-in cost of what it takes to operate it? Because it's a lot higher than what you think it is.
Great point, Corey. I don't think most companies do. I mean, it's hard enough for companies often to even identify what their OR is, right? The operating ratio. So I think that just takes it down to another, like, as you've bucketed out these, call it P&L buckets, like, where is that really being absorbed? And I like how you also framed up of, as much, I think this is where technology helps, right? On any bad actors that may have been they may be in the pool, but they're the guilty ones of damaging the assets. And maybe that's where some of this hardware camera equipment starts to really make it, very objective. Like, this is not a hearsay or, we have definitive, we have quantifiable evidence, empirical data that shows that under your ownership of that period of time that you're to blame. So Don, I'll kind of turn it back to you for a moment there. What kind of touching on what one of the things I also find out is, and I think maybe Corey may have brought up one of you guys, when we tried this at a large 3PL I worked at many years ago, it was this idea of any given market can change, whether through seasonality on a week-to-week base, month-to-month. And we, at that point in time, again, no technology like we have today, but we were chasing our tails. We would say, all right, reposition. We're anticipating a big market down in South Florida for produce, or out in the Pacific Northwest for apples and Christmas trees, or whatever that looked like. But it was almost like we were constantly playing a guessing game of where's the big market going to hit. Historical data will give you some of that. But as we've all learned, like, there's no way to truly predict all that. So when you guys are in a room talking about this shared asset, and I'm sure at some point they're like, well, how do we ensure that we don't have just an abundance of capacity sitting idle after, we missed the market, we missed the boat, and now we have a demand in another market, and that's a pretty big monumental undertaking to reposition all that. How do you guys, Don, I'll let you answer that first.
Yeah. So we're a little unique in this regard, right? A large amount of the business where we deploy, especially our owned assets, right, is contracted business, right? So we're very intentional about how we build out our network. When we first came on, that wasn't the case, and it'll never be the case when you're building up a network. When no one knew who FreightVana was, it was like, we have trailers, where do you want them, right?
Right.
And now that we've built relationships and we're getting into what we're calling our sophomore and junior seasons with some of our shippers, it's like, okay, now let's mold, let's realign. So what looked like a shotgun pattern at first has now consolidated down. Now, again, that's for the owned assets. That's where these players are coming into play here pretty strong. Is if I were playing the spot market, I can't chase market to market. And, Spencer's talking about the repositioning cost. Yeah, if I need a bunch of trailers moved from Tennessee market to Chicago market and to facilitate freight 2 days from now, guess what? I'm paying some money to get that done.
Yeah.
Versus hitting a marketplace, working with a task and saying, hey, in 72 hours, I'm gonna need capacity in the Chicago marketplace. I need to start spotting those. Well, I can hire a dray to drag stuff over from a dealer in Chicagoland, spot it at the trailer, start working on preload, and then run that out with the power only capacity, and then stick it back into a dealer network down the road. Like, that's where this is going to unlock a lot for those in the space. So a lot of those challenges that we faced earlier, Chris, because you're absolutely right. Like, if I was a traditional brokerage and I was running, I'm not going to say anything crazy. Let's say I'm just doing 60% spot right? Or even 50, let's call it 50-50. If I'm running half spot, that'll be a problem, right?
Yeah.
Like I can't do that and with an owned asset. With a shared asset, absolutely. That's what these guys unlock for us and those in industry.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Corey.
one point to jump off there that he triggered for me, back to partnerships, just because we love this ecosystem partnerships concept that we really have to lean in on, because take parking partnerships, like parking, huge megatrend, a lot of new players starting to solve parking. How can we create parking partnerships as part of our marketplace where we can pre-position assets before an RFP starts or something? So there are also ways, exactly like Don was mentioning, that those can also be demand signals for us that help us understand parking behaviors and stuff actually end up feeding into the freight behavior. So, again, with the technology now to create these linkages and these interconnections in the ecosystem, really can enable us to do this a lot better.
Yeah, Corey, that's a great point. Great point. Spencer, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, it's really, really interesting. It's fascinating to see the willingness from, some of the industry's largest players in the country that have 40, 50,000, upwards of 100,000 trailers that, they find themselves in that exact situation where they wake up and they have a glut of capacity in a certain market and they need to rebalance to a different market. And what we see them doing on a larger scale nowadays is they will, make their trailers available in a market where they have a glut of capacity and get them moving that way. And then they'll turn around and cross over on the marketplace and secure some short-term capacity in the market where they need capacity for a week or 10 days or however long. And so it's just fascinating to see just the largest players in the industry play both sides of the market. And, we early on, we always heard that you'd never see a large player, pulling a trailer of another large player, a competitor. And it's just really neat to see that coming to fruition and people working together and collaborating, egos aside. So I think it's awesome to see.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now, kind of, when we talk about just the landscape of the segmentation of the carriers, do you think, guys, this is something that is going to really, are we going to lean on the bigger fleets to kind of adopt and prove out this concept? Or do you think the opportunity is probably more feasible to go with a mid or, SMB, mid-market, smaller size fleets to really get that proof of concept at some level of scale? I'd love to hear what are your strategies in terms of where you see the most bang in terms of getting this off the ground. Is it at the longer tail, or is it, again, as tradition would have it in a lot of technologies and new concepts, the big boys have to kind of prove it out and then everybody else follows. So Don, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, well, don't forget
knowing your background.
Yeah, even at my prior company, right, and they've grown pretty well since then with some acquisitions. But keep in mind, at our peak, we represented a total of 1.5% of the marketplace.
Right.
So yes, the big players are going to unlock something from like a total trailer count perspective. Absolutely. But there's a lot of opportunity, and not even the long tail, but like near the head and all the way down. Right. So I think it's going to be dependent on how and where we deploy. Right. Like we work with a lot of mid-sized carriers, right? Mid to large even. That's not to say we don't work with small carriers. We do. My carrier profile is going to look different than Corey's. Corey's going to look different than Spencer's. So I think we're trying to find the segments still that work best for our individual businesses.
Yeah, it's not a one size fits all necessarily. Well said, Don.
By any stretch.
How, guys, I want to ask you too, and I guess I'll start with Corey. We know that there's upside for the live load, live unload. Again, we see that all the time. The huge lack of efficiency, and sometimes there's a reason for it. But are the shippers, these receivers and various facilities, have you gotten their inputs on, hey, the upside for you guys is there's going to be a lot more fluidity of trailers moving in and out through dropping hooks versus these often just the delays and the ripple effect that occurs with some of these live situations that no one likes, right? It cuts into hours of service. There's always this accessorials associated. So are the shippers leaning in this as well? And Corey, I'll let you kind of start on this one.
Yeah, oh, absolutely they are. I mean, some of the biggest shippers are the biggest players in this space drop for exactly the reasons you mentioned. I mean, they address surges in capacity, spot market flexibility that they can enable. Scheduling, obviously, is the biggest benefit there. But, really being able to expand their network beyond the asset-based only carrier that I think Don actually opened with at the very beginning is also a big part of why they want access to pools and why they love drop. So
yeah,
absolutely, they've been playing in this for a long time.
Yeah. Spencer, is that pretty much what you're saying as well?
Yeah, I think Corey's spot on. I think expanding the network is key for them. And so I think Corey hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah. Well, guys, I just looked at the clock and gosh, I feel like this is a topic that would be best suited for a panel discussion at one of these upcoming conferences we were talking about offline. So maybe we can make something happen. But what didn't I ask? What other, as we wrap up a little bit, what again, it kind of ties into maybe that other question of for folks thinking about this, how do they get started? So again, this can be just all encompassing. What didn't I ask, and what other parting words of wisdom would you guys have to share? And maybe Corey, I'll start with you on this one.
So I'll just maybe running out of time. I'll hit just two quick things. The
Sure.
insurance challenge, I think, is just huge. We've spent a year working with some of the biggest insurance partners to try and solve this, especially again for brokers and carriers. Carriers end up in a really bad spot there. For $1,000 load, the amount of burden they take on the liability side and the cost of that. Insurance is just a major challenge. We're working toward including it in our task program because it's so important. But then of course you can add that on as well. So that's a big thing. The other thing I guess I would highlight is when you're going through those RFPs, we hope that this trailer pool concept and the access to wide capacity really helps you to be able to grow your business and expand even during a down cycle. A lot of times you kind of pray when you put that bid out there and you hope you're going to be able to find the capacity and at the cost and performance that you wanted to get it at. I think this kind of concept can really help other players grow even in down market. So
we glad you brought up the RFP and bids, because I think there's something to be said for going to your bid strategy and saying, hey, let's not restrict ourselves just to what our own available capacity and assets, right? Let's just open it up. So that's a great point. Spencer, I'll let you kind of have any parting thoughts for you, and again, maybe touching on Corey's point or just anything else.
Yeah, I'd say parting thoughts are just, we're in a very interesting time throughout the supply chain. We saw in COVID, those fleets that didn't really take that trailer-centric approach to operations, we're in trouble. And so I think since, coming off the heels of COVID and in today's day and age, it's fleets are becoming more trailer-centric, even brokerages and shippers, owner-operators even. And so I would encourage everybody, no matter the size of your company, take a trailer-centric approach. Consider trailers as an advantage, shared trailers as an advantage, part of your operational strategy, and make sure that you have ultimate flexibility within however you decide to go acquire trailers, whether it be purchase, lease, short-term rent, or just on-demand access to capacity. But just encourage everybody to take a trailer-centric approach. Be happy to chat with anybody for any unique challenges you're working through.
Outstanding. All right, and Don, I'll let you take us home, buddy.
Yeah, bud. Well, hey, one, thanks for putting all this together. This was a great conversation today. So, you talk about growing in down markets. FreightVana was founded. We just celebrated our 3-year anniversary, right? So we were founded at the beginning of a down market and have thrived throughout, right? So I think that's a testament to an appetite for this, even though I think we're all on a path where we're having to educate industry on why this is the thing. And I guess the only caution I give is it's not easy. Like there are complications with this. It is not a solved problem yet. So if yeah, and then just from the shipper side, this is the only FreightVana plug, right? Like if you're looking for a pure play brokerage that is doing power only, like you can reach out to us at hello@freightvana.io. We're happy to discuss this with anyone. And then anyone interested in just learning more and maybe some of our experiences, even with the panelists here, feel free to reach out to me personally. Happy to talk trailers anytime.
Awesome. Well, Don, I appreciate Spencer and Corey. I'll let you guys, how do folks best reach you guys?
Yeah, Corey.O'Brien@onewabash.com. You can definitely hit me up on LinkedIn or however. Love to talk. We love trailers too, of course.
Yeah, love trailers. And Spencer?
Yeah, you can find us at repowr.com. It's repowr.com. My email is Spencer, SPENCER @repowr.com.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Well, guys, look, I think we only got the tip of the iceberg today, but this is a starting point. And as I said at the very beginning of this call, personally, I feel that the future of the transportation networks, at least domestically, there's something to this idea and there's something to this concept. And I'm just grateful to see companies like yourselves really taking the baton. And from what I experienced 15, 20 years ago, and really with technology advancements, which we covered today, we talked about some of the, the watch outs and the pros and cons and just all food for thought for folks out there that may be listening in that think about, hey, this is worth further exploring. So hopefully for everyone listening in, you've got 3 what I would consider experts in this field of shared assets, trailer pool, drop and hook networks. Semantics is in play, but whatever you want to call it. So again, I thank everybody for joining today, and please reach out to these folks. And let's I'll leave with this. I love that each of you, though there may be some overlap in terms of competitive frenemy type mentality, that ultimately you guys see that this is like, it's going to take a village. And I couldn't agree more. And I'm grateful to see you guys come together on this panel and really reinforce that notion. So with that, I'll go ahead and sign off. Jacob, I don't know if you want to come back out from behind the curtain and shut it down. But yeah, again, thanks for everybody for joining today.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
I'll add some closing notes. Everyone can expect a follow-up email with the recording, and hope you all learned something today. Thank you to all of our panelists and Chris for hosting. So until next time.
Thanks for coordinating, Jacob.
Until next time.
All right,
All right.
guys.
Hey, guys.
Have a good one.
Thanks all.
See you.